Cord.
All right, good evening, everybody. Today, Thursday, May 29th. It's the monthly meeting of the School Building Committee. The first item on the agenda is a presentation from TAPE. Chris couldn't be here tonight due to a previous commitment because we switched the night. And so Steve and Stephanie are going to be presenting for TAPE. So whichever one of you all want to get started, we're eager to hear.
Awesome. All right, let me share my screen. All right. So first and foremost, we just wanted to give the committee an update about the floor plans. It's been a little bit since you guys have seen them.
You gotta swap your screen, Steve. We see the preview mode, not the presentation mode.
Oh,
You gotta pick a different monitor. Yeah.
there we go.
There you go. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So sorry about that. To give you guys an update about the floor plans, there's been some noticeable changes, and then there are some smaller items as well. The big change is that we were able to implement the strategy for departmentalization within the high school, and then also accommodate the teaching groups in the middle school so that we're no longer having one of the grades split across two levels. In addition, in order to try and break up the long corridors in the existing high school academic wing, and how long and monotonous they can be, we've started to carve out some spaces for a breakout space. You can see them outside of the resource room and the small group room, on the portion of the wing that leads to the area that we're demolishing, and then in the admin portion, there's a couple spaces outside of teacher planning and another resource room as well. The other big change is that we got the go-ahead to reprogram the secondary servery in the kitchen and cafeteria space. And so that allows us to relocate the custodian's office, which gets it a little bit more of a central location from where it was previously, as well as the custodian workshop and storeroom. It also allows us to reduce the overall square footage of the building slightly, which is always good news. Also in the cafeteria, we had talked about creating a dedicated zone for quiet lunch, basically for students who have are prone to sensory overload, to create a small space in the north west corner of the cafeteria, where you currently have what I think used to be a snack counter that has served as a storage space for a while. And so the big shift, again, moving to the second floor, is the fact that all the science classrooms now are basically maintain that entire the frontage opposite Clyde Brown. And so those are all ganged together with a dedicated STEAM space as well for the high school. And then that allows for all the classrooms to be grouped, the other classrooms, English, math, etc., to be grouped in their pods of 4 or 3 respectively. So that's the update for the plans. Are there any questions on that before I move on to materials?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Sure. Yep.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm looking at the first floor, right? And I'm looking at the locker rooms. Do you see where I'm talking about?
Yep.
Well, the locker rooms, back when I went to high school in that building, you could walk right out of the locker room and go out to the fields. But it looks like now you're putting all this stuff in the front, classroom 144, 45, 46, right?
Yep.
Is that the new did we adding that? Is that new?
So there's a darker line that's indicated here where I'm tracing my cursor. That's the extent of the current building where we're taking over. There's a garage space or a freestanding garage space just outside of that existing wall. So that's the extent of the current building. So the middle school addition will be, for lack of a better term, making the locker rooms more interior in terms of the overall plan.
Okay, so this is a question, and I know that Diane's on this call, and I think she spoke with the fire chief also. So the fire chief, who also went to this school when he was an athlete, he's concerned that the kids with their cleats, how are they going to get outside the building without cleating on floors?
So that's, I think we're gonna have to make sure that the new floor that gets installed, between the gym and the locker room spaces, as well as the flooring in the middle school, will have to be as durable as possible. That's going to be, because that's going to be their main way. It's either that or through the gym is going to be their main exit point to the fields.
Okay, so that's a consideration, right? We're thinking about
Correct.
that?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. And my second question has to do with the piece that was existing, that was the 1966 edition that
Yep.
we're now taking down, right?
Yep.
Okay, and I know you've explained this, everybody's explained this at least 3 times, but I'm still getting questioned. The last one I heard was we're taking it down because it can't be repurposed, because it wasn't a very good addition. Does that sound right?
Yeah, so when the
I'll
building
let
was
Jeff take that
built,
one.
yeah, I can take that one. So when the
Go
building was
ahead, take
built,
it. Yeah.
yeah, the floor plan that you see in front of you was the original construction of the upper portion, not obviously the middle school addition that we're aware of. And what Ellen is alluding to is on the left side of the screen, the white space just below the elbow, yeah, right there, was an addition that was built a few years after the original building was done. Now that floor plan did not match the classroom size of the rest of the building. So at the time it was built to be slightly smaller. So of all the classrooms in the school, that had the smallest classrooms. So it's not that it can't be reused, but you would have to blow out all the interior walls to match the current standards of what you're trying to get with classrooms in an existing middle high school. There was also a consideration given to the phasing, right? So if you were to keep that wing and not do the middle school edition, you would need a much longer phase with all modulars, right? And so this committee talked about trying to reinvest dollars in permanent structure. And so the reason why this option was ultimately selected was that you built the new addition first and used that wing as the swing space initially for what will be the middle school, but then also for what will be the remaining high school. So that becomes the phase for swing space twice. And so it allows you to build the new middle school, move the kids over, move the high school kids into that old wing, renovate what's in the upper left corner of the screen in front of you, then demolish that wing on the way out. So you're using it twice as an effective swing space and allowing the rest of those spaces to be, demolished to a size that works for today's standards.
And basically, Jeff, with that, we'd have to upgrade everything in the area that we're demolishing. We'd have to basically, we'd have to gut it, new roof, new systems, new classroom wall sizes. So there's this, you're putting a lot of work into a space that, where we won't be gaining the ability to do the swing space.
Yeah, I mean, the other things to consider were, you would, when you renovate that space, you're still undersized. You still need additional classrooms, right? There's an existing courtyard today. The committee did look at options that infilled that courtyard. You looked at options that kind of scabbed on a smaller addition where the middle school addition is. And the school department didn't like the remoteness of that science wing, if you recall, right? It became kind of a pod on its own. And so, one of the underlying, drivers, I think, from the school is to kind of create that high school, middle school feel, as opposed to having kids run all over the school for different periods or different classes. And so those are some of the maturations that this committee talked about that led to this option.
Okay.
And that'll need to be re-explained multiple times to the public. But everybody always
think?
wants to say, why would we throw away something that's perfectly good? It was good enough when I went there 30 years ago. You're going to hear that 100 times between now and town meeting. And we as a group, the committee especially, need to crystallize on what I just said in a way that
Yes,
becomes sound bites. So you can kind of carry that torch and remember what was discussed at these meetings over the past year and a half.
yes, and maybe after I hear it another 14 times, I will be as good as saying it as you. But for the time being, you're right. People are saying, why in the world are we spending money to demolish space, lug it away, cost, and then build new? Is there no way to repurpose it? And you keep saying no, and I believe you, but we
No,
need to,
there's a way, it doesn't necessarily cost you less
right. That's the
because
message, right?
it leaves you with lesser space, which this committee debated on. It costs more money in throwaway costs, which are swing space. So money
Right.
you're not reinvesting, millions of dollars you're not reinvesting in the building. And this committee thought if you're going to spend money on modulars, you want to stretch it as far as you can for permanent investment and not a temporary throwaway. So yeah, we could certainly work with a bunch of sound bites in terms of the high level stuff, a
Okay,
little memo or something, so
okay,
that the committee can kind of go forth and share that publicly.
I think
okay, and then
important,
go
I think
ahead.
it's important to say that this was not going to save money by doing it that way. It's not a money saving option. Okay, maybe it's a little bit, but it's a totally suboptimal outcome as well. In terms
Right,
of the whole point of the building.
So
right.
is this
I
the
understand
cost
why-
saving option? Is this
Pardon me?
cost saving
Yes,
between the modular, right? That this is the cost saving option.
Yeah, the modulars are
Yeah.
a huge cost that we don't need to spend.
Yeah, there's
and that's-
millions of dollars that are used for 2 weeks, and that's not what we wanted.
Right.
right. It's
years.
That's
just,
the message. The
yeah,
message is
it's
that-
just it's just not what you'd think, right? It's not what you think.
Right.
We
And I
have an
think
exist,
one of
right.
one of the point that Jeff brought up is that we need to be consistent with our message. So
Yes.
I know you're replying to some stuff. I know Shana replied to something. I
Yep,
think part of the thing is we need to make sure that we're consistent with the message. Because we don't want to end up, what'll happen is somebody will say something slightly different than the other person, and all of a sudden, it'll be on Millis Public Forum, and there you go.
and we'll all be wrong. Which is the great thing about Millis Public Forum. We can all say different things and still all be wrong. Here's my third
You're
point.
done after two.
I'm I promise I won't talk again, which I'm probably lying, but okay.
Yeah, hold it.
So the last meeting that you guys had was a couple of weeks ago, and you talked about different things. And one of the things you talked about was the source, the energy source, and we talked about gas, right? Because electric just doesn't seem to be viable today. Am I right when I say that?
Correct. However, what they
Yeah.
said was they can set it up so we could
Right.
integrate it if we decide to later on.
Okay,
And
now,
it's not that it's not viable just because words matter. Like it's still more cutting edge. I guess is how I kind of say it. Like when you get to buildings of this size, it doesn't have the track record that gas systems
agreed.
have.
You don't want to be the first one. Believe me, I've been the first one.
It's a new technology.
And it never works. The question is, how many years is it gonna take before my people that come after me, God willing, on the select board, that they're gonna go for another override to switch it over? Are we talking 20, 30 years, or are you talking 6 or 7 years?
No, 20, 30 years. I mean, like a
Okay, good.
gas-fired boiler lifespan is about 25 years.
Okay,
The all-electric system is actually 15 years. So, the town and all the towns around you that make that decision will be replacing the mechanical systems more frequently when you go to an all-electric system compared to a gas-fired system.
Yep.
Now, geothermal is longer, so you do get more out of it, but it's a much higher upfront cost, but you do
Yep.
get a longer life out of geothermal. So many towns that face that decision choose to go geothermal over the all-electric because you're not replacing it every 15 years. You're actually getting, 45 years out of it.
Right. Okay, that's a good answer. I just was hoping you didn't say 6 or 7. Okay, thank you.
No, yeah, we did talk about that last meeting. It's not a throwaway cost. You are just planning it so at the next replacement, you can actually click over and go to all electric at that 25-year to 30-year mark.
Okay,
Jeff, when we were doing comparison of the various design options, we put a number on modulars.
We
I
did. I don't have that up the top of my head. But yeah, we can resource all that stuff.
It was about 400,000 per classroom for modulars. for
Okay.
We
a
had like
period of
12 or
3
something.
years.
So yeah.
Yeah, we were talking 7 figures here.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh yeah.
yeah. And
Several
I
million
think,
dollars.
Ellen, if you think about that, I mean, Rick Barrett's comment was a good one, but when you look at the difference
I
of
get it.
putting millions in modulars that are gonna have to go away, we got rid of the old modulars when we built Clyde Brown. It's just, wasteful, I think.
And the modulars are unreimbursed expense too. So
Correct.
that's 100% on us.
Good point, Craig. Thank you.
All right, Steve, back to you.
One more point I want to make just while this plan's up, so we're working hand in hand with Tape and they're tightening up the overall design and little nuances you guys don't pick up on, but we asked Tape to kind of try and streamline some of the design where you can get it, have less corners in the building. And so the barbell just below the pink gym there is actually all flush now. At one point that undulated a little more. So they've found areas to kind of make that more regular shape. The one on the left side is still a little bit staggered because you're trying to get light into that third classroom, right there. So you do want that kind of opening up, kind of like an alleyway. If you make it too narrow of an alleyway, you'll get no light back there. So that is why that side of the building does step a little bit. And so, there are thoughtful conversations that happen behind the scenes that, unless we point it out to you guys, don't see the value. But, Tape and Vertex are working to try and tighten this up and be as efficient as possible, but also providing quality space. And so I want that out there for knowledge.
But I actually have a question. Craig brought up unreimbursable expenses, and fields is one of those, correct?
Correct. I mean, for turf fields are unreimbursable expenses, stadiums are unreimbursable expenses. They cap site work at 10% of the building value. So generally it's your building itself and the parking lot. So in simplistic terms, the answer is yes, but it's a little more nuanced than that.
Okay, so is it because they just don't do fields, or like why are fields not included? And my follow-up question to that is, why are gyms included then for like to create this like seating and stuff to have like Final Four basketball tournaments in, but not fields?
Yep, so good question. So the MSBA program tries to strive to be on equal footing. So it tries to treat an urban school like Lawrence, Methuen, Boston on the same footing as a rural school. And so they invest in the building. And that's the kind of simplest way of saying why they put effort into the building itself and not so much the exterior. They also focus on things that are educationally based, and PE is a part of the core program of education. Obviously, outdoor access is important, but that can be a field. It doesn't need to be a playing surface. And so that's why they kind of cap it at 10% of the value. It's actually a dollar amount now, but it's 10% of the value of the square footage they reimburse for the building is also applicable to the site. And so that's basically, once you do all the sidewalks and the foundation work, you've kind of used up that 10% pretty quickly.
And one more thing, Robin.
So it's
on
not
that,
considered
one-
like
one
PE
thing on
space,
that
the field?
is- Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, one more thing on that is just to follow up with what Jeff was saying is that once you start the upgrades on the fields, like let's say we went after the football field and we went after the the grandstand, we have to bring it up to code. So what happens is it just explodes. I was in the fields committee and we went through trying to upgrade all the fields about 10 years, no, probably more than 10 years ago. And the problem is once you touch it and you put over a certain dollar amount, you have to upgrade everything. We'd have to rip all those stands down, redo them. There'd be ramps, there'd be lifts, there'd be bathrooms. The numbers just go through the roof.
But that's not considered PE space?
No, because the PE occurs within the gymnasium or the other Peach Box. That's a PE alternative. They would want outdoor space, but they don't define what that is. That can just be a natural grass area. It doesn't have to be a field level access. And so they don't really define how that 10% gets applied, right? They, in theory, you could say they provided a field versus the sidewalks that are directly outside of the building. Again, back to the urban versus suburban. Like urban's not going to have any of the parking lots that a suburban campus would have, and you're going to have a bus pickup and drop off. You're not going to have all the parents lined up, and so there are nuances there, and so that's just the metric that the state picked for those reasons.
Okay, thank you.
No, I mean, in a perfect world, obviously, you know, we understand what a, you know, what a disaster the fields are. It just, unfortunately, right now, the ring that we're going for is to get the school.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
understand that. I was just wondering, like, the use of the space considered physical education. Like, couldn't you claim that the field is physical education and it's not up to code, so that needs to be fixed with the building? That was just my question.
Yeah, so they don't prohibit you from adding anything to the project in terms of outside space. I shouldn't say that entirely. That you can provide fields and all that stuff, but the things that are ineligible, they're allowed but ineligible. It just brings your effective rate down, right? So if your starting rate is 55% of all eligible costs, once you start to add in all those ineligible stuff, when it gets to the ballot boxes, the town sees that we're really only getting 30% back instead of 55 because we've added all these things on top that are not part of the core educational reimbursable items.
Well, no, I understand that part of it. I was just questioning like why a field isn't considered core educational if like part of the curriculum is teaching things that are outside and on a field.
Yeah, they don't define it. Like they like to see the outside PE spaces. They like to see the outdoor classrooms. They like to see, learning environments outside, but they've capped it at 10%,
Okay,
and they don't define how to attribute that 10%.
that's all I was asking. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, back to you, Steve.
Yep, no problem. All right, so moving to materiality and some 3D views. So first and foremost, in terms of selecting materials for the project or proposing materials, I should say, we're putting a strong emphasis on cost-effective materials, getting the most bang for your buck, and also, trying to draw inspiration from some of the surrounding public buildings in the area to try and create some sort of unified campus feel. So we're showing here both the existing brick from that's at the school now, in addition to the existing utility brick that was used on the Clyde Brown Elementary School. And then there's a few other images here which I can flip back to in a minute. But so we have a couple of 3D
Can I
views with
just make a,
corresponding.
can I just interrupt for a second?
Sure, go ahead.
I fully support your concept here. I mean, this is a campus. And we have a campus which includes the high school, middle school, the Clyde Brown School, and the town hall.
Yep.
So whatever we do with the high school is going to have to, in my view, it's not that it's consistent. It feels like it's part of a plan, not just to be looking at things and cookie cutter. But I think it's important for us, whether it's surfaces or whatever the design is. I mean, for example, this picture here it's blocks of things stuck down on the ground. Clyde Brown School has some roofing concept to it, but this doesn't have, which is fine. I mean, I get it. But I think that if you look at this thing, we have a 100-year-old building, a 10-year-old, or 7 or 8-year-old building in this one, and they ought to be at least look consistent. And consistent is the wrong term. You architects, I'm sure, could understand what I'm trying to get at here. We're not just building a building, there's space here. And we want the community to feel as though this space, which they've invested literally hundreds of millions of dollars in, is a space that they feel as though it looks and feels the right way.
Sure. Yeah, you want it to be speaking a similar language.
I don't know if others feel that strongly about it, but I do.
Yeah,
that's
we
probably because
deliberately,
the Zynga
we
building at
deliberately did that
BU
with
looks
Clyde Brown.
ridiculous.
Yeah. With Clyde Brown, we deliberately picked the red brick that was a significantly larger brick than the town hall because somebody on the screen told us that from a distance, those large bricks are the right scale. Otherwise, they appear too small.
Well,
So, and it does look good. Yeah. So
complementary is kind of.
Yes. And it's not just the building, it's what we do with the landscaping around the building.
Right.
And I realize these are in totally different eras, but I want us to keep that in mind. And you said it earlier, and I just wanted to throw in the town hall as also a component of this core campus.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a key overriding, that was a key decision point with the Clyde Brown. That's why we went with the red brick building exterior. So I don't know if this red brick here, the red utility brick, is the same style brick that we used on Clyde Brown, but yeah, that might be a way to think about it.
Steve,
The goal is to have it more consistent to the existing brick that you have in the academic wing. So there'll probably be less color variation than you have on Clyde Brown. But yes, the approach is similar.
but Steve, you also brought colors in, and I'm sounding like a little bit of a decorator here, but you've brought color in different ways in there, in the windows, the roof
Yep.
edge, which he's going to get to into a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a series of 3D views corresponding elevations, and I've tried to break out, the proposed materiality for each one of these views. So, again, using the red utility brick for any portion of the new addition, with the exception of the gym, that was going to be this split face CMU, with a polycarbonate panel, similar to the cow wall that you guys already have in your existing gym. We've used this on a number of projects, up high, at the gym space, and then just below the roof line, there will be a metal panel, accent, to try and provide a little bit to help conceal the structure that otherwise you would roof structure you'd see for the gym.
Also, Steve, Chris had also mentioned something about with the brick, meaning one of the questions I think Jim was bringing is, and Craig, is that, we don't want it necessarily look blah. And on the Clyde Brown, you guys broke it up with some different, you had a couple of shape bricks, and I think you did something. So they can kind of mix it up a little bit by modulating the brick to some degree.
Correct. So moving around, so this view is from the fields, and this primarily focuses on the middle school edition. Again, you're seeing that polycarbonate panel that wraps the third side of 3 out of the 4 sides of the gym. And then again, the red utility brick utilized across the entire middle school facade.
And also, didn't you use? I see the gym. The gym is a split block, correct?
Yes, it's split face CMU. Yes, correct.
So what that one is you've seen those in like other towns. It has almost like a stone face. It looks like the whatever that paving company is, Belgian block or whatever it is. It gives it some texture and it gives it some different color. And I think Chris had said that because it's a different element, it would be okay for that to stand out a little bit.
Correct.
Do you want to walk through the windows while
Can I ask one quick question?
Yep.
So the block, split face block, the brick, they're all very durable materials. The metal panel, is that low enough that kids could touch it, that people could put their hands on it? I mean,
No.
the reality of it is that, number one, in my experience, metal panels scratch a lot. They scratch quickly. And it's very visible when they do scratch. And we're dealing with kids and with brick and block, you can get some goof off and you get marker and paint off of those, and pen pretty easily. But with panels, metal panels, they'll grab something with an edge to it and they'll start scratching into it. And all of a sudden we'll have a metal panel or something that has to be painted on a regular basis.
Well, with that right now, Al, just to have just a different thought. Right now we have windows that have aluminum frames in them in there, and they've managed to survive. I think the panels that he's talking about would be, and that's what I wanted you to go through that, Steve. That's on the second floor where you put them where the wall intersections came in. If you could walk through that with the group.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, to answer that question, so the metal panel, the extent of the metal panel in the view that you're seeing right now is very high, right above the polycarbonate panel at the roof of the gym. So that's not going to be accessible. One of the other strategies that we had introduced was one of the sustainable goals of the project was to try and reduce your window to wall ratio at the existing academic wing. Currently, you're sitting at about just over 50%, your window to wall ratio. And so as a way to try and reduce that to, somewhere between 20 to 30%. We started to introduce, again, without changing the expanses and the rough openings you have for your windows, starting to deploy a pattern of an insulated metal panel at a singular pane in each or light of each existing Windows run. And so what we're able to do, you can see it both in the 3D and in the elevations as it's highlighted in green here. The goal there is to try and create some sort of playful variation to help achieve that, and to give some visual playfulness to the facade.
But to your point, Al, I mean, you see down in the bottom of the existing west elevation, I mean, there will be some down low. So yeah, I mean, you are correct. There would be a certain amount of risk down in those areas, but the same thing, the kids could go out and if somebody wanted to scratch their name on the existing, anodized aluminum windows, or the doors, they could. I mean, it's,
Yeah, they're a much smaller space. I worry about metal panels in those kind of conditions.
Oh yeah, no, I
All
got it.
kinds of oil canning that can happen, especially on a south-facing wall. There's dents, there's things. It just is a maintenance, in my opinion, it's a maintenance issue in the long run. That's all.
Do you have a better option, Al?
They do make like a stainless steel panel that's a little thicker. It's obviously a lot more pricey too, but it holds up much better. There are some solid surfaces that aren't metal panels that also kind of they don't give the same effect. I understand why they're being put there, and brand new, they look great. They will look great brand new, but I'm just thinking about in 5 years, 10 years.
So,
Well, how old is the go ahead, Chris.
sorry. Thanks, guys. Sorry, I was a little delayed. The metal panels that we're talking about they're actually about 3/8 of an inch thick, a little bit more than that, and it's like a sandwich with a solid core. Oil canning hasn't typically been an issue we found with this type of panel, and they come with these finishes that we can get pretty robust on. But we hear your concern. I think it's funny, Al, one of the things we do in our office, I'm sure a lot of architects do this, but we order samples of materials and try to abuse them in the office. It's actually a kind of fun event that we'll do with some select beverages on hand to try to see if we can damage them, because if we can damage them, then it likely means the students can too. And we try to figure out what the wear and tear is on these so that we're proposing things that are, everything has a risk of being damaged, but it's about how you repair that. And if it does get damaged, can we even design these in a sense that like the module, like we can put brake lines and different designs in it so that it deters certain things from happening. But at some point, we don't have that many options here. There's fiberglass, there's wood, there's maybe a cement type board or like a PVC or metal panel, and that's kind of the lot of options you have. There's other things like terracotta and stuff, but it all just gets really expensive, right? And so I think this is kind of a middle ground, and we'll keep working on it. I think we'll note what you're saying and try to get some samples and make sure that you guys are comfortable with it before it ever goes on a building. So
Can I get an invite to that damage party? When you
Right.
get
yeah, for sure. Yeah, downtown, we'll be there.
Not
Yeah,
for nothing,
same-
not for
samesies.
nothing, but graffiti wise, split face block is almost impossible. So whatever you think you're gonna find the detriment that matches it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Goof off is a wonderful thing.
All right, Steve, we cut you off. Go ahead. Or Chris, depending on who wanted to run.
No, Steve's doing great. So I think that might be it, but I don't know, Steve.
Yeah, I was just going to flip back just to show this was the view from the proposed drop off. Again, just introducing some glassiness to the middle school entry, and then we've tacked on a smaller entry for the direct entry for the high school as well. And so both the entryways are designed to have a similar language to them.
And
Can I just go back to the gym, and I can see it from this angle. I don't know, I had the feeling that it looks like it just got dropped in there from some other place. And believe me, I am not very good at understanding what buildings look like or what the right thing is, but this looks strange to me. Whether it's the color or I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, but
I mean, for me, this is, it's a clear story. So it has the, the upper windows which let all the light in. It is square. I mean, we're building a box to do sports events in. I mean, your question maybe is, hey, is there anything we can do to dress it up? So like,
well, yeah, I mean, to call it out, I don't say but to call it out by making this totally different material and color
that's
just
on
adds to it.
purpose, Jim.
Yeah, I know it is, but I don't think it's very good.
Okay. That's why we're paying
Well-
these architects so much money because they think it is.
I know, that's why I say I'm not the professional. I am
Well, the
paying
good
for part of
news-
this, however.
It's okay to have opinions.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
As
is
long as
okay.
they agree with mine.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
The good news is we don't have to be resolved on colors necessarily. I think the idea that we're doing here and the goal of schematic design is to establish a budget and a scope. Like that's kind of the end of the process leads up to a scope and budget for the project. And so what we're kind of reserving here, more importantly than the color, and actually more importantly than split face versus ground face versus smooth face, like there is a slight difference in cost on those, but it's not enough to cause too much of a ripple at schematic design. But what we're trying to do is establish a budget for material that we intend to put in that zone. And that kind of leads us into schematic design and says, this is what we're dealing with. And honestly, working on another middle school with Vertex that opened last fall, in the VE process, these CMU blocks for something like a gym or something like that became a very budget conscious decision that we could make during that process. And so where we're able to, this has been the mantra for this entire project, is like where we're able to make budget conscious choices in terms of the material we reserve for the cost of the project. We want to go ahead and do that, because why propose something that we think is going to have to come out later anyway? And so,
Right.
Not to get too honed in on, color or necessarily texture. I do think a split face would be nice, but it might be a combo of some split, some ground. But more to the kind of conversation is like Clyde Brown, we did introduce those roof lines that had some pitched roofs and stuff like that. We're not showing those here because that is a cost premium, and it's a big increase in structural steel and space and all the stuff we don't want to encumber on this project. And in particular, big roof spans like a box for a gym just wants to be a flat truss based thing. That's as simple as we can make it. And so the things you should be focused on are the size of the gym, the scale of the model, the scale of the massing, and the sort of basic roof lines. Those will evolve over time too. But what we're not proposing is pitched roofs or anything like that. And that is a kind of, you can't really go backwards from that at this point, because it's going to add more money and scope to the project. So that's kind of what we're talking about. The roof edges will be able to ease and detail out to kind of make that a little better than just a fall off the cliff kind of moment. But I think that's set enough, but that's kind of the thing. Don't get too focused on color or texture too much.
And to Chris's benefit too, Jim had asked about making sure this vocabulary pulls back from the town hall as well as Clyde Brown, as the campus, the full campus. And I think it does, right? The rough face CMU kind of harkens back to the limestone on the original town hall, and as well as the light brick that we have on Clyde Brown. The gray panel kind of, speaks to the gray roofs that we have on Clyde Brown. So what's
Right.
here does kind of speak to the overall campus look and pulls from each of those other two buildings in different ways.
And then to follow up on that is going back to the drumbeat that we've had the whole time, Chris said is, every time he says, "Hey, I'm thinking," I said, "How much does it cost?" Because that's the first question I asked. So, if he said he was giving away free lollipops, I'd still ask him how much it costs. So, we're just trying to do the best we can to manage the budget.
I think too that like seeing it not in an illustrated view like this will also help it feel like it connects back to the Clyde Brown and to the town hall. It's hard to visualize when you're looking at an illustration.
That's a perfect segue to a reason that next meeting I want in person, because we're actually going to do a similar thing with interior, and it renders really flat here on a computer, right? So Chris can bring some CMU samples, right? So you guys can get a look at that textured brick and that textured CMU while we look at the interior at the next meeting. We can also bring a few more samples so you guys can kind of look and see the feel of the exterior brick, and that'll give you a more representative set of Tape's vision.
Chris, can I ask a question about Clyde Brown? Don't we have some accent stripes? Horizontal accent stripes?
Yep. So one of the things on Clyde Brown, and there was to Craig's statement, there was a lot of conversation about the module of the brick, whether it relates, across the field and all that stuff. But what we ended up doing was it was almost a 2/3, 1/3 break, where there was a horizontal element, and then it shifted to a slightly lighter color, in the formation. That was an interesting, what the model there kind of ended up being that the portion that ends up the 1-story portion that's up high on the hill, that kind of tracks around as the lighter color, and then the darker color kind of comes down to the ground. And so yeah, there was the ability to kind of break that a little bit and create a different feel vertically on the vertical wall, right? So you have kind of an upward lower situation going on. And I think what I was talking about in the working group where we went over these originally is that, while we're showing, and again, to the point of flat renderings and sort of cartoon illustrations at this point, we will be doing more realistic renders of the outsides as we get more through schematic design. But we can also push and pull on bricks to create patterns and shadow lines within the same wall. Like, you take one brick and move it out, or you take a line of bricks and move it out, and it creates shadow lines, which help change the way the wall looks without adding a whole lot more fuss and detail to the project. I can't tell you it's a zero cost difference, but when the mason's building the wall and he just offsets one by an inch, it's not that big of a deal as compared to like changing a whole color of brick and adding things in, right? So there's little tricks and stuff like that you'll see us get more detailed on, probably more in design development than schematic design, but we'll start to show you some of that a little bit when we can.
And I think that may help Jim's feeling that it's kind of blah.
Sure. Yeah.
Putting words in your mouth, Jim.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying what it looks like to me is artificially plopped in there, not the building. I get that.
Yeah, the color.
But the way it is set apart, that's all. Now, again,
Yeah.
I'm no architect, but
No, but you know what? Architects, we don't work for ourselves. So we need to make sure that you who are non-architects understand it, and that it is satisfying to the eye of the beholder. So we're definitely making note of the comment, Jim, and I appreciate you being brave to say it, and we will work on it. That's what
being brave to say it. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Some people don't like to offer their opinions like that. So.
Well, guess what?
I appreciate that you did.
Not me.
So, yeah, but I think that's what we had, Rich. So
Great.
I don't know what's
Perfect.
next. So.
Next one is the technology and AV design update.
Okay, for the technology overview, we met earlier today, so some of these blurbs are going to be a little updated. But here's what we know. We know that all the existing cabling and components will be removed. The new hybrid technology infrastructure will be a design system combining Cat6 cabling, full wireless coverage with high Wi-Fi bandwidth, and any existing equipment that can be used will be used. A new, more centrally located MDF room will be included, and that will cut over from the existing MDF room through phasing. So the new servers were updated, so the new MDF room will include 2 4-post server racks, and then there will be new IDF rooms throughout. In addition, all outdated network switches and accessories will be replaced with new technology, and existing equipment will be used where practical. Enterprise Wi-Fi will be replaced with new technology. Intercom and clock systems will be updated with current technology. Existing VoIP phones will be reused with new hardware provided where necessary. Wall-mounted interactive flat panel display technology will be provided in classrooms and other instructional spaces, as well as voice amplification systems. And then video conferencing capabilities will be provided in conference rooms. We also talked about today including new technology in the new computer labs. 4 new 3D printers will be provided, as well as several laser cutters with ventilation. And then digital signage will be provided, and the existing platform will be assessed. So that is it for the
Could
technical.
I actually ask you a question on that? Hey, Chris, so on the, over at Clyde Brown, we ended up with, one of those server rooms on the second floor that ended up overheating. We are gonna make sure, once you guys land all that stuff, to make sure that we have, because I make my guys do a calculation to tell me the BTU load of everything, and then I make sure that the HVAC engineer, I've actually had to put systems in just for the AV, stuff that we put in, because it generates so much heat.
Yeah, we'll size it and provide the calculations. I think we need to probably, in actuality, oversize the assumption, because there's going to be open rack space, and if someone
Yeah.
down the road comes
Right.
in and adds something in it, we need to make sure it's capacity. So
No, I mean, I know on the second floor, something shifted and we ended up jamming a bunch of stuff in there. I just, one's burned shy. We want to make sure we pick that up.
yeah.
We're not gonna have a mass notification system in the school, correct?
No, we plan for that. I think currently that's in the electrical scope, and most schools do plan for that, but that's a decision point you can make.
I just
Yeah,
know
well-
there's some interface with the local fire department issues and some of the beacons and the coloring of those. So I just want to make sure if we go down that route, we're making sure that we involve those folks.
We have a meeting set up with the police chief and the fire chief.
Next week, yeah.
All right, next item on the agenda, we had an amendment to the TAP 8 contract. So Jeff, are you going through that, or how are we handling that?
I had one more slide first.
Oh, you
Yeah, I
did?
think we had a security
sorry about
overview.
that.
High level security. It's a good segue.
Okay, so jumping into security, we know that a single security database for the whole campus is preferred for ease of maintenance and training. So to expand the existing security for Clyde Brown to the middle school, high school, the committee will need to make a vote for the system to be proprietary.
Do you want us to do that now?
No, not now.
No,
We
no.
just So it's just a philosophy. Wanted to let you know that, the feedback from the school is they want to, because there's only 2 schools in town, they wanted to operate off the same infrastructure. And so, the school committee as the elected body in town will actually need to make the proprietary vote. But we wanted this committee to understand, because there is a slight premium associated with not having open competition, but there's a value in having, it all be interchangeable and buy less parts for stocking and replacement, et cetera.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So does that mean we were 100% comfortable with the security system we already have at Clyde Brown, and therefore we would move it over or expand it to this one, or?
I would defer to the IT director to comment on that.
Yeah, a few things are being switched or updated, but the next kind of section of the presentation talks to that and what will stay and what won't. So the general concept is to mirror the access control, the intrusion detection, and potentially the video management. So the control system is perfectly functional. So we're going to go with the system that's in Clyde Brown. The video management will be accessed. The intrusion detection is Bosch, and that will remain. And then the video intercom will be upgraded to a newer system. The Juniper network switches will remain, and then we will look into providing keypad readers that will coordinate with the Brown and district credentials. Currently, the middle school, high school doesn't have keypad readers.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Any questions on the design portion of the presentation?
And on the security overview, we're going to get, to Rich's point, you'll get feedback and agreement with the police chief and fire chief that this is going to work as far as they're concerned.
Yeah, so we do that meeting. It'll actually, the first one will be next week, and these are more isolated, closed door
Yes.
meetings that we won't even report back the details
should
to
be.
this group publicly, but it'll go into detail on, you know, lockdown procedures, Alice protocols, all the kinds of things that you wouldn't want general public to kind of know, but it in-depth plans and responds to the wishes and operations of fire and police and things like that. We did this with Clyde Brown. I think we're totally ready for that, and that's going to start next week, and we'll start with the actual site. So how do you get to the school, the landscaping, all that stuff, and then we'll go into the building and do all the electronic stuff as well. So
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, so next, now that we're through the slides, the next one would be the amendment to the TAPACE contract. Jeff, did you want to walk through that, or?
Yeah, sure. So so I asked the question of TAPA, you know, what else would be good to know now today so we can tighten up costs overall, you know, confirm assumptions versus waiting to after schematic design when the project gets funded, you know, and the goal of that, like everything here, is to kind of tighten up costs overall. We do have money left within the budget. So the two items that TAPA came up with, the things that they would like to know, would be a hydrant flow test, kind of confirm capacity in town, determine, you know, size of pumps or things that may need to be added to the project budget. And the other one is dialing in the, you know, asbestos material in the building. It is an older vintage building. We do want to check some other areas. And so in your packet was a proposal, and I can throw that up on the screen now here as well. And so what that proposal looks to do is to kind of recommend two things. So one is doing some additional hazardous material investigation around the existing building, specifically around the foundation, to try and access the waterproofing around that. That's usually a hot element. And so the wings that we're going to demolish, we want to know whether that foundation can be pulled outright and disposed of, or whether it needs to be abated first, and then take some other, I think, some roofing samples in a few other areas while we're doing that. So that's item one of the proposal. Item two is the test for the hydrant flow test. There will be other testing that occurs in the next phase. So just to kind of, the proposal kind of noted a few of those. So there'll be additional traffic studies and site surveys and geotechnical reports and soil testing in terms of geoenvironmental characteristics, destructive testing. That all will happen kind of in the next phase after schematic design when the project moves forward. But TAPA and Vertex felt these first two elements made sense to do now so we could tighten up the overall cost. The proposal for that to do the hazardous material testing, including the backhoe and equipment, with markup comes out to $12,650. The hydrant flow test is $2,500, with markup is $2,750. So the total value there is $15,400. And so that's the element that we're looking to recommend the committee move forward with. One of the other conversations that I had with Chris is, in the conversation of what else would be interesting, there is an opportunity that, as we talk tonight, it's hard to kind of know exactly where the bill's going to land, the building itself. If the committee wanted to have the building staked out, meaning, spray painting the asphalt areas and putting stakes in the ground, there is an opportunity to bring the surveyor back out for a day to do that work, which is the $19,080. That's purely optional, and it's really just if it helps you or the public really gain a better understanding of the limits of the addition. That's just one optional element you guys could consider. Before I open it back up for questioning, I just want to let you know in the project budget that we send every month with the invoices, there's always an available to commit and spend column. There's $116,000 left within that budget that's not committed. So that 15,000 would come out of that number. There's certainly capacity to do more of the other testing should the committee really want to dial in and do additional geotechnical or other types of evaluations, but we felt this was the right number to bring back to the town for consideration.
No, I mean, I think that sounds fine because, obviously asbestos can turn into a complete nightmare. And on the hydrant flow test, that goes back to the Clyde Brown where we at the end had add the booster pump. So that was, I had pushed for that at the beginning. Just to make sure that we know, if we have to add a booster pump, it's cheaper or more cost effective to add it, during the design, than have to come back at it. And then on the building layout, I think that could be a double-edged sword. Because I mean, I know how far the building's going to go out. I think it may be something where if we stake it out, it's going to get close to the fields. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I understand that. That I leave that up to the committee to, if anyone is interested in it. It's $1,900. It's, not that that's nothing, but go ahead.
If we could see, I've asked Mike, and I think you're working on a real site plan. Are you working on a real site plan?
Yeah, so we've updated to Alan's request too as well. We put the updated floor plans on the website last week and a downloadable link so people can get those. The site plan is a work in progress, which you're going to see at your next meeting.
Okay.
And so what we're doing there, TAPE has looked at the traffic flow. So we're going to talk about that with the two chiefs next week as it relates to buses and parent pickup. And out of that conversation, there will be an updated site plan that will come back to this committee at your next meeting in June. And so the short answer is yes, but it's a work in progress and not ready to present the next iteration yet.
Jeff,
Okay,
do you-
well, if we get the site plan, I don't see why we need to spend any money on stakes that are gonna be pulled out of the ground the minute you put them in.
Okay.
No, and I agree with that. One question, Jeff, on that, with the tank in the courtyard area. They did some initial testing on that area, correct?
You mean the borings, or there was a
Yeah.
boring in the courtyard, I think, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember the exact layout of all.
There was definitely a boring in the courtyard.
Yeah, I mean, my question is, we've got a 10,000 gallon tank in there. Have we written enough into the budget to say, hey, we're gonna pull it out, or do you guys think it would be worthwhile to do some more borings over there to see if we, if there's something we should just be thinking about adding into the budget?
I could totally be overruled by this, Rich, but I wouldn't do it because if you find something you don't like, you're going to be forced to fix it, which might be a big can of worms.
You're forced to fix it in a set period of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Not just that
So I
you'll
would
be forced
just
to
wait
fix
till
it.
you have a project on hand and you're going to deal
All
with it.
done. That's why we asked you the question.
Yeah.
I'm okay with a no.
Yeah, I don't, but it's a good point. I don't remember explicitly what we carried in the last estimate, but we'll carry some level of, contaminated soil, right? If there was a slight spill, a crack in the seam, or something like that. But yeah, we'll carry a contingency, but I agree with Chris and Mike.
No, that's fine.
What about you're not planning on doing a 21E, are you?
No, I don't think anything's triggered a 21E on this
Okay.
project.
I don't either, but I'm just asking. They said that about the police station too, and
Yeah.
But this has always been a school, though. This wasn't an auto dump before, right?
Like
it
the
wasn't
Victor police
always this
station, we never
floor.
know what the original uses were or what they dumped way back when. But yeah, that was an auto, discovered to be an auto place after the fact, and the borings that were done during design happened to miss the plume that was under the
Yeah.
ground there. So that risk exists. We certainly
Well,
think
I
it's
think-
less of a risk here, but it could exist.
I mean, I think the biggest thing over there was the transite pipe. That was the biggest thing
Right.
on the over there is what they.
No, they hit a plume. Like we found out after you guys broke ground that there was the prior uses just dumped fuel essentially there, and it was kind of near where the foundation of the original library was. So we didn't hit it in the original borings. We kind of got on the grass area, but there was additional contaminants found once ground was broken and the building was torn out.
All right, well, so unless there's any other discussion, I would make a motion.
Rich, can I just?
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question too.
Go ahead. Yep.
I wanted to just, in terms of the, staking it out or what have you, I agree that as soon as stakes goes in, somebody's gonna take them out. But I just want to make sure that we can say as much to abutters as we can to indicate to them that the impact on them is very limited here in terms of, there's an addition. Well, where's it gonna be? Well, it's not gonna be in your front yard. I mean, abutters are always the most interested in finding out exactly what's going to happen vis-a-vis their place. So I think it's important that we figure out a way to make sure they understand that any new construction is really not going to have an impact directly on them.
Fair enough. Robin, sorry, you had something?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we have to decide on these things right now, or for example, the like survey location proposal is if that's something that we'd want to do later on, can we
We
do
can pull
that?
that
Yeah,
Like,
the bottom one can happen at any point, and that's
Okay.
why it's an optional scope. You don't need to do that. The top two, we will do an estimate. Your next cost estimate will start on July 16th, I think is the date. And so we would just want to do those two now so that we can actually have the engineers give us feedback to filter into those numbers that are coming out, end of July, early August.
So they want to check to see if there's any asbestos and when they demo the building, and then we want to do the water test to know how to design the piping inside the building. So that's why those make 100% sense.
okay, and then if we want to do this survey later, we could do that like closer to the vote, so people might come and see, hey, this is where it actually is going to be and how big it's going to be and what it's going to look like.
Well, the same thing with that is my nervousness going kind of like Chris's thing is, yeah, it's gonna be, it's gonna be, the volleyball thing is gone. It comes out that far. It gets close to the fields. I mean, it really will end up, I mean, that's the space we had to put it in.
Well, no,
So-
I understand that, but like, don't we want people to understand that so that when we start construction and the volleyball field's gone, they're not like, what happened to the volleyball field?
Well, that, I don't know if we'd be getting votes by saying, hey, we're gonna take your volleyball things and we're gonna get rid of them,
But
it's
we
a-
don't want to like hide the fact that we're doing this
No, we
either.
don't.
yeah, well,
I don't know if we should stake it out, but I think a good site plan.
site plan.
The
I
site
think-
plan, the before and after site plan
Permanently,
will tell
and
the
we can
Yes.
story.
note that volleyball's gone. I don't know what we get from the stakes because they'll be there for a day, but a really high quality site plan will show what's gone, where it is. And that's much easier to read than in my opinion, than a block, design of the exterior of a building. I think people can relate to a site plan pretty easily.
Yes.
Thanks.
I mean, it was a good question. So I mean, but I think, I think the plan is, I think the best way to go about it. Is there any other comments? All right, I make a motion that we authorize TAPE to go ahead with the asbestos testing and hydrant flow tests for the amount of $5,400. 15, sorry, very tired. $15,400.
Second,
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, passed unanimously. All right.
I think there was one other. Right, the only other thing was just, so I asked Kim to send out meeting invites for the rest of the summer so that it's on your calendar. I know you're all, everyone will be busy, you'll all be in different directions. I know we'll be top of your list of things to do this summer, but I wanted to get that out there, and I want to do that. Obviously, last week we had a quorum issue. That's totally understandable, but we do have a hard deadline the end of August. So, we get to that point, there's not a lot of wiggle room. So I do need people to, if you're not available, you just need to let Kim and Rich know to make sure we have a quorum. With the exception of the next meeting that's going to be in person, the rest of them will all remain virtual. So that should be hopefully keep it flexible so that people can squirrel away an hour and a half or so when the time comes to have those meetings and those dates. But if you do have conflicts, let us know early so we can kind of adjust with the group as a whole as we go through that. And as I alluded to earlier, the next meeting being the 18th was recommended to be in person because we are looking at those interior finish materials, and maybe if Chris can help us some of the exterior finish materials you presented tonight, so you guys can kind of get a feel and a sense of what the design of the building will look like.
And we're having a meeting on the 11th for the public, right? Still?
Yep.
Okay. That wasn't on your calendar, so I was just double checking.
Yeah, so good question. That was on a different sheet. I just whittled down the building committee meetings on that one pager. Well, the meeting schedule we sent out at the last meeting had the other ones on there. So it's a good point though, and that brings back feedback loop, right, for open discussion today. So we've scheduled the next public forum on June 11th at 1 p.m., trying to catch a different demographic in town, of people that are retired or people that are stay-at-home parents that have better flexibility during the daytime. Listservs have gone out. It's been posted to the town library, town website, town bulletin boards, out through the school listserv. We did get one comment back saying the last one was in person, this one's in person. I'm a working mom, I can't go. Can you guys please do a virtual meeting? So I do think another virtual community forum this summer is important to get that demographic as well. And so we had kind of floated out a date at the end of June for that. And the reason being that we're going to talk about the construction phasing at your next meeting with this group. And so that would be kind of new content for the public. And so I figured we would kind of work that into the next community forum, if that makes sense for this audience.
No, that makes sense. I mean, the comment that was made was was a good one, that, they want to be involved, and if they can't, they need to be able to get in touch. So that, it was a really valid comment.
So
when we get closer to the fall, I think we need to, and this is the fine line between advocacy and just information. All of these forums are you come to us. Okay? We have to have some things where we go to them, wherever them may be, whether it's the senior center or whatever. Because I think that's when the outreach to the voters is going to be really, really important. And, I think that's something we need to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this stage it's the public forums where their input still can influence and matter. And then what Jim refers to is what we call the road show, which is where members of this committee and subsets, team up and go to individual groups and try and get them to understand what's included in the project. So they're educated on the project itself and what the proposal is. And there is a fine line there of not advocating, but educating.
That's right, Jeff. I didn't mean you guys would have to do it. I mean, and then it falls to the leadership of the town to do the outreach, and like you say, information only, but at least we got to go to them. We can't just expect them to come to us.
Right. And we did that with the other override that on Clyde Brown. I'd be glad to go out in a partnership with somebody, not just me. I have no problem going out just me either, but I think it's more effective if we have somebody from this committee also attending those meetings. We did a lot of those for the Clyde Brown and a lot of those for the override that didn't pass. So
I do want to lock down tonight as the last business. I had that second forum in June. So the 11th is the daytime forum. Your meeting is June 18th at night. And so the next forum would be the following week, to make sure to get it in before July hits. And so we suggested doing it Monday night, the 23rd, as a virtual meeting. Again, just a different night of the week, different time of day, different vehicle. You know, we'd previously done it on Wednesdays, I think mostly, or random Thursdays, just trying to pick a different night, just trying to make it accessible to different people. Is the committee okay if we do a virtual on that Monday, the 23rd?
What time, Jeff?
Be 7 o'clock, I think would be a good time for virtual.
Okay.
Are we talking June?
Yes.
June
Yeah.
23rd, yeah. So to get it in that final week before the craziness of the
holiday.
July 4th starts. And that would be 100% virtual, Zoom meeting, and you know, forum just like this where people can ask Q&A with a chat function and get the information out there.
At 7:30?
7.
7.
And is someone gonna respond to that person who,
Yes, I think Diane, you already
I
did.
have twice.
Yeah.
thank you.
She wants a hybrid meeting. And Kim was gonna see if we could record the meeting on the 11th. But she wasn't happy. I said to her, go to the website. Here's where all the meetings are. You can see them on YouTube. SBC forums, whatever. She said, no, I want to be able to call in or ask a question. So
Big. Real tough. Yeah.
I said we'd work on it, but
So
I'm not
Right.
sure we can do it.
yeah, well, if we go with the 23rd at 7 p.m., that will be a virtual meeting for her to access the committee and the project team and ask her questions. And you know, I think that'll pick up a different demographic. I think the school age parents, you know, myself included, like it's easier to kind of go to these public forums in our towns when you can kind of dial in for, you know, 45 minutes in between feeding the kids and putting them to bed. So I do think that 7 time frame kind of is good for working parents, kind of post dinner, pre bedtime ritual.
The only thing we'd have to think on that, Jeff, is, you know, would we be, you know, because we think we did it before where we did, the questions were by chat or, you know, I mean, because that could get into a ball of worms where, you know, if you did too many questions, too long, you could draw it on, you know, we just have to think about that a little bit. Not that we want to discourage people from
Yeah, we
asking
did
questions,
the
but-
first, all good points, Rich. I mean, the first couple of forums we had some hybrid options in a Zoom one somewhere. And yeah, we'll work through that again.
Yeah, I don't mind if it runs long, if we're getting good feedback. I'd rather not just shut it down at the quickly, just hit a deadline. I am not one for long meetings, as Ellen will tell you, but if we have a lot of good questions being asked, whether in the chat or verbally, then I'd let it run until it runs its course.
Okay,
And
no, that's fine.
I don't mind having the comments coming in from people, you know, saying things live either. It's always a little risky, but
It is, but it's better to get it out early than deal with it the week before town meeting, right? So
we can do a pre-meeting. Jim can host it on how to unmute your mic.
I
I'll
think
get
the
my
last,
my golden clicker out.
Yes.
I
that's
think the last time we did it, we used Google Meet. Cause that's what we have at the school. I don't know if people were okay with that platform.
I don't know, we can have to figure out that. I mean, I'm not sure on that. It worked fine, but, is that something we need to decide tonight?
No, we can huddle the smaller group. It worked fine. I think Zoom's a little preferable, but it worked fine. We worked out the kinks and made it work.
These things tell us how many people came and who they were, right?
Yep. I mean,
Yeah.
provided, you know, sometimes there's an ability to be, you know, type in anonymous or things like that, but
Well, that's fine, but I'm talking about if there's 10
Yeah,
people
you
or
can get-
10 or 1,000 people, and we need to know.
correct.
We can count people at a forum where it's live, and it's not 1,000. I understand that.
And it's been
Yeah,
pretty easy.
everyone
at
will have to
ours.
sign on. You'll have a list of the people they sign on with whatever name they populate it with.
Jim, can you kind of prowl around the Glen and see if we can find a spot and reception to come and talk to them?
Just ask them. You don't have to prowl around.
I don't know who to ask.
Yeah, we already said, I had a contact over there that we can get. We actually had a couple of contacts over there that we can get to. So when we're ready, we have some people we can
Okay.
go.
Yeah, we have 2 members of the Board of Trustees who are town committee members too.
Mhm. John Stedman and.
John Stedman and Carol Maloof is on the Council on Aging. She
Okay,
just got elected to the board over here, so.
And Mike Golden is the president, isn't he the?
His term has expired, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's
So
the new
he's
one?
feeling pretty good after 5 years of service.
All right, well, anyhow, no, I think that's good. Thank you for that. And I think so we're done with Tape and Vertex. We have invoices,
We actually don't have any invoices
Oh.
for minutes.
Oh.
Just
then we won't be
Okay.
paying those. Good.
Richard, your favorite motion?
Yeah, no, meeting notes, and no meeting notes too?
Nope.
no, yeah, not this time. We'll do 2 next time.
All right, well, that's absolutely fabulous, since I had 3 hours of sleep in the past, I don't know how many hours. So unless there's
You were
something
in
else,
Puerto Rico.
well, I know.
Yeah, this complaining is not having much sympathy.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
gonna-
no, no sympathy.
All right,
You on
unless
that
there's-
boat with Stefan Diggs?
I don't know. I was by a pool laying there in the sun, rolling
Good one,
asleep.
Bob.
Sounds off.
All right, well, with that, then I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
I
All right, good night, everybody. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Thank you.